My friends, take a moment. Imagine a hot afternoon. The sun is high over the sand. The air feels dry, and the wind moves in long, soft waves across the desert. Imagine standing near a great shape of stone. It rises into the bright sky. It is quiet, but it also feels full of voices from a very old time. Imagine the sound of feet on dust. Imagine men calling to each other as they carry tools, water, and food. Imagine the light on white stone, so bright that it almost hurts your eyes. Imagine looking up and up and up. You know this is not a small building. It is not even just a big building. It feels like a mountain made by human hands. Have you ever stopped to wonder who first looked at this giant shape and felt small? Where did it come from? Why is it still here after so much time? How did people build it without modern machines? Can you imagine lifting so much stone under the burning sun? Why did they try something so huge? And how did this place become a symbol for the whole world? Here is the early twist, my friends. For most of its life, the Great Pyramid did not look the way many people see it today. It was once smoother, brighter, and more shining under the desert light. Today we will travel across time and across places, from river water to desert stone, from human hands to human hope, in simple, clear English. Our first stop is ancient Egypt, when the land along the Nile River was full of life. The river was everything. It gave water to fields, food to families, and roads for boats. Beyond the green land stood the dry desert, quiet and wide. Imagine small villages near the water. Imagine farmers watching the river rise and fall. Imagine storehouses, boats, animals, and busy hands. Life was hard, but life also moved in a clear rhythm. In that world, kings were not seen as ordinary men. They stood at the center of power, belief, and order. People believed the king was close to the gods. That means he was not only a ruler of land, he was also part of a great spiritual plan. And here came a question that changed everything. When such a king died, where should he rest? What kind of house should a godlike ruler have after death? A simple room? A small hill of dirt? Or something that touched the sky? At first, people built smaller tombs. These were places of burial. Burial means the act of putting a dead person in the ground or in a tomb. These early tombs were important, but they were not yet the giant shape we know today. Then ideas began to change. Builders learned, rulers wanted more. People looked for new forms, stronger forms, grander forms. This is where change slowly began to rise from the sand. Say it with me, stone can carry dreams. Our next stop is the time of experiment. Builders did not wake up one morning and suddenly know how to make the Great Pyramid. No, my friends. They learned step by step. They tried one form, then another. They made mistakes, they improved. Imagine workers cutting stone blocks. Imagine planners drawing lines and measuring space. Imagine leaders asking for something higher, stronger, and more lasting. A tomb was no longer just a place to hide the body of a ruler. It was becoming a message. What message? Power. Order, skill. A ruler could say, without words, look what my kingdom can build. Can you feel that idea growing? Can you see why one great tomb might lead to a greater one? But there was a problem. Stone is heavy, very heavy. It must be cut, moved, shaped, and placed. Even one block is hard to carry. So how could people move enough stone to make something this large? The answer did not come from one magic idea. It came from many simple ideas working together. People used time. People used teamwork. People used tools. People used the land itself. Now let us travel to the river again. The Nile was more than water. It was a path. Stone could be brought by boat during the right season. This made a hard job a little easier. Not easy, of course, only easier. Imagine boats loaded with stone. Imagine ropes pulled tight. Imagine workers on the riverbank calling out together. They were not building with speed. They were building with patience. Repeat after me. Step by step, we build. From the river, the stone had to travel across land. This may have been one of the hardest parts. Many people believe water, mud, sleds, and ramps all helped. A sled is a flat object that can slide over the ground. A ramp is a raised path that helps move things up. We do not have every detail. Records suggest many smart methods were used. Some accounts describe teams pulling heavy blocks over wet ground, because wet sand may have made the path smoother. A little water could save a lot of strength. Is that not clever? Is that not a quiet kind of genius? Our next chapter takes us to the building ground at Giza. Here the desert became a work site. Here, A dream became lines, blocks, corners, and rising levels. Here, human skill met human hope. Imagine the noise. Stone striking stone, voices in groups, feet moving, food being shared, orders being given, dust on skin, sweat on arms, light everywhere. Many people once imagined only slaves built the pyramid. But many experts today think the story was more complex. Workers may have included skilled laborers, farmers working in certain seasons, planners, cooks, toolmakers, and transport teams. In simple words, this was a huge national effort. That changes the picture, does it not? Instead of only pain, we also see planning. Instead of only force, we also see community. Instead of one man, we see thousands of hands. My friends, imagine a worker stopping for water and bread. Imagine him looking up at the rising sides. Did he feel tired? Certainly. Did he also feel pride? Very possibly. Did he tell his family, "I helped build that"? I like to think he did. But there was another problem. A giant pile of stone is not the same as a pyramid. The shape had to be true. The base had to be level. The sides had to rise in balance. The builders needed accuracy. Accuracy means being very exact. How do you make straight lines on a vast desert floor? How do you keep a shape balanced as it rises? How do you turn vision into order? This is where the Great Pyramid begins to feel even more amazing. It was not only big, it was careful. Every layer needed thought. Every angle needed care. Every block had to join a larger plan. Try this phrase. Care makes greatness last. The higher the pyramid grew, the more difficult the work became. Stones had to go up. Workers had to stay organized. Food and tools had to keep coming. The work could not simply stop and start in chaos. It needed rhythm, like the Nile, like breathing, like a shared heart. And still the structure rose. From far away, people would have seen it growing against the sky. Day after day, season after season, the shape became clearer. First a broad base, then rising sides, then a true giant of stone. Can you imagine living in that time and watching it grow year by year? Can you imagine the talk in villages and on boats? Can you imagine children pointing and asking, "Will it ever be finished?" The answer was yes. But first, more problems, more ideas, and more change waited ahead. The work continued under the same hard sun, my friends. The pyramid was already rising, but now every new layer brought new difficulty. A lower block is hard enough. A higher block is harder still. A small mistake below can become a big mistake above. Imagine men looking up from the ground. The shape is larger now. The wind feels different at the higher levels. The path upward is longer. The work grows slower, heavier, and more dangerous. But there was a problem beyond weight and height. The builders were not making a simple monument. They were making a royal tomb, a place for death and for belief. Inside the stone mountain there had to be inner spaces, passages, chambers, hidden paths. A chamber is a room inside a building or a tomb. A passage is a narrow path inside. These were not random empty spaces. They were part of the design, part of the meaning, part of the plan. So now the challenge became even greater. How do you build huge outer walls and careful inner rooms at the same time? How do you keep the giant form strong while leaving space within it? How do you stop the weight above from crushing the rooms below? This is where skill becomes almost as important as size. The Great Pyramid is famous not only because it is enormous. It is famous because people shaped stones, space, and balance together. That is a different kind of greatness. Say it with me. Skill gives stone a voice. Imagine planners studying lines in the sand. Imagine skilled workers shaping inner blocks more carefully than outer ones. Imagine the quiet inside the unfinished passages, cooler than the desert outside. In those dark spaces, every mistake would matter. Some rooms inside the pyramid seem simple at first. But simple is not the same as easy. Sometimes the strongest design looks calm from the outside. That is true in buildings, and perhaps true in people too, my friends. Now let us travel upward again. The sides continued to rise. Blocks were placed layer by layer. The shape narrowed. The top came closer. How did the builders bring stone higher and higher? We still discuss this today. Different ideas exist. Some people speak of long ramps. Some imagine ramps changing direction. Some think several methods were used at different stages. We do not have every detail. And maybe that mystery is part of the story. We can see the result. We can study marks, tools, stone, and ground. We can build ideas from evidence. Evidence means signs that help us understand the truth. Still, some questions remain open. Does that make the pyramid weaker as a wonder? No, it may make it stronger. Imagine a long slope of earth and stone leading upward. Imagine teams pulling with ropes. Imagine leaders calling the rhythm: pull, rest, pull again. A huge block moves just a little, then a little more. Human strength alone may not sound grand, but when many people work as one, even sand and stone begin to change. My friends, this is a good moment to remember something simple. Great things are often built by ordinary actions repeated many times. Lift, place, measure, check, rest, return, lift again, repeat after me, many hands, one purpose. At some point, the pyramid neared completion. Its shape became sharp and complete. But there was still another change to come. The rough steps we now see were not the final look. Long ago, outer casing stones covered much of the surface. Casing stones are smooth outer stones. Imagine the difference. Instead of a rough stair-like body, the pyramid would appear clean, bright and shining. In the strong Egyptian sun, it may have looked almost unreal. It may have caught the light like a giant signal in the desert. Can you imagine that sight? Can you imagine travelers seeing it from far away and stopping in silence? Can you imagine the morning light sliding across its smooth sides? My friends, even today the idea feels powerful. This was one great turning point. The project was no longer only a tomb. It became a visual statement on the land itself. It said the kingdom had order. It said the ruler had power. It said the builders had skill. Stone became message. But there was another problem. Time does not stop for kings, not even for the greatest kings. Wind blows. Sand moves, people come and go. Later generations take stones, change places, fight wars, build cities, and forget old meanings. Nothing human remains untouched forever. And so the Great Pyramid changed again. The bright outer stones did not all stay in place. The smooth skin slowly disappeared over the long centuries. What remained was the great core, strong and massive, the form many people know today. This is our second major turning point, my friends. The pyramid changed direction from royal tomb to ancient survivor. That means the pyramid we see now is both complete and incomplete. It still stands. Yet it no longer wears its first shining face. Is that not a little sad? Is it not also beautiful in another way? Imagine touching the stone today. It feels old, rough, and warm. The shining skin is mostly gone, yet the structure still speaks. It speaks of labor. It speaks of change. It speaks of hope held inside hard material. Try this phrase: time changes every surface. Now let us move beyond ancient Egypt to the long life of the pyramid after its building years. Many people came to look. Travelers, writers, dreamers, scholars. Some came with respect, some came with questions. Some came with wild stories. When people face something very old and very large, they often fill the silence with imagination. Some ideas are wise. Some are strange. Some are a little funny. Can you imagine someone seeing the Great Pyramid and saying, "Perhaps this was made by anyone except human workers"? Human beings do this often. We see greatness, and we forget the greatness of other humans. But the pyramid brings us back to reality. It tells us that ancient people were not simple in the way some later people imagined. They studied. They measured. They organized. They built with courage and with care. My friends, this matters. When we look at the Great Pyramid, we are not only looking at stone. We are looking at human ability. We are looking at what people can do when belief, power, planning, and work come together. Imagine a visitor from centuries later standing in the desert at sunset. The air cools, shadows grow longer. The pyramid does not move, it simply remains. Kingdoms rise and fall. Languages change. Clothes change. Roads change. Yet the shape still holds the evening light. Say it with me. It still stands. That is why the pyramid slowly became more than a tomb. It became a symbol. A symbol is something that stands for a larger idea. The Great Pyramid came to symbolize endurance, skill, mystery, and ambition. Ambition means a strong wish to do something great. And perhaps that is why people across the world still think of it with wonder. Not because it is old alone. Not because it is large alone. But because it joins so many human stories in one place. Still, one question remains. If it began as a royal project in one land, how did it become part of the imagination of the whole world? That is where our journey goes next, my friends, into memory, meaning, and the long road from desert monument to global symbol. As centuries passed, The Great Pyramid kept standing under sun, wind, and stars. Its original world changed around it. The voices that planned it became quiet. The hands that built it were gone. But the shape remained, and that alone gave it a new kind of life. Imagine a child seeing it for the first time from a distance. It looks simple, almost like a drawing. But then the child comes closer. The blocks are huge. The air feels still. The old stones seem to hold both silence and story. Imagine travelers crossing sand and rock. Imagine writers trying to describe what they feel. Imagine artists making pictures. Imagine teachers telling students, "This was made by people just like us." That sentence matters, my friends. Just like us. Because here is the full circle moment. The pyramid began as a message of one ruler and one kingdom. Over time, it returned to the world as a message about humanity itself. Its meaning grew larger than its first purpose. That is a remarkable kind of change. Have you ever seen one object carry many meanings at once? A tomb, a wonder, a question, a lesson, a symbol of skill, a sign of hope. The Great Pyramid became all of these, and perhaps more. Now let us step closer to its power as a symbol. Why do people still care so much? Why does this one building stay in books, films, classrooms, and dreams? Why does it still live in the global imagination? Part of the answer is size. Big things catch the eye. But many big things are forgotten. Part of the answer is age. Old things invite wonder. But many old things do not become world symbols. So what gives this pyramid its special place? I think it is the meeting of size, age, and human effort. We look at it and feel two things at once. We feel small and we feel strong. Small because it is so vast. Strong because humans made it. Repeat after me. People can build wonders, my friends. There is also something deeply human in the pyramid's shape. It rises from a wide base to a single point. It feels stable below and reaching above. Even without words, it gives the feeling of order and direction. It feels as if the earth itself is trying to speak through geometry. Geometry means shapes and lines used in careful design. That may sound like a hard word, but the idea is simple. The pyramid is not only a pile, it is shaped with purpose. Imagine early morning at Giza. The air is cool for a short time. Light slowly touches the stone. Visitors stand quietly. Cameras click today, of course, but the old feeling remains. People still stop. People still look up. People still ask how. That question has never really gone away, has it? How did they do it? How did they plan so much? How did they keep the lines so true? How did human groups stay organized over such a long task? Each question pulls us back toward the builders. And that may be the best gift of the Great Pyramid. It does not let us forget the workers behind the stone. Behind the shape were cooks, planners, tool makers, boat crews, stone cutters, rope pullers, and skilled builders. The monument feels singular, but the labor was shared. The structure has one form, but many lives helped create it. Imagine one block in one worker's hands. It seems small in the whole story. Yet without one block, another block has nowhere to rest. Without one team, another team must stop. Without daily bread, no one can work. Greatness is made from connected acts. Try this phrase, every part matters. This idea reaches far beyond ancient Egypt. We see it in bridges, books, farms, music, schools, and homes. A home is not made by one nail. A life is not made by one day. In the same way, the pyramid was not made by one dramatic moment. It grew from repeated effort. That is why this story can help English learners too, my friends. Listen first, then repeat in shadow. Shadow means you speak along with the voice, trying to match the sound and rhythm. It is step by step, word by word. Like stone on stone, can you see the connection? The builders did not finish in one day. You do not grow in one day either. They returned to the work. You can return to the words. They trusted small actions. You can trust small practice. Say it with me. Step by step, I grow. The Great Pyramid also teaches us something gentle about time. We live in a world that often wants speed. Fast answers, fast travel, fast results. But this monument comes from another rhythm. A slower rhythm, a patient rhythm. Imagine the desert evening now. The sky becomes gold, then orange, then deep blue. The edges of the pyramid soften in the fading light. A bird crosses the air. The stone grows cool. Night comes quietly. In that moment, the pyramid does not feel like a lesson in school. It feels like a companion from a distant age. It tells us that human work can last. It tells us that skill matters. It tells us that change does not always erase meaning. Sometimes change gives meaning new life. My friends, that is important. The pyramid lost its smooth outer skin, yet it did not lose its power. It lost part of its first body, but it gained a wider voice. It moved from royal memory into world memory. And so the story becomes warmer than it first seemed. What began as power also became shared wonder. What began in one kingdom now belongs, in a way, to all who look with care. What began in the desert now lives in minds everywhere. Repeat after me, old stone living story. The next time you see a picture of the Great Pyramid of Giza, take a moment. Think of river water carrying stone. Think of workers pulling together. Think of bright casing stones catching the light. Think of long years, steady hands, and a dream made solid. And the next time you feel that your own progress is slow, remember this old shape in the desert. Great things can rise slowly. Skill can grow quietly. Hope can travel a very long way. My friends, the pyramid still stands. And perhaps it is still teaching us how to build, how to endure, and how to look up with a little more wonder. A mountain of stone, yes, but also a very patient hello from the ancient world.